So.
Okay, so I've started the recording for you.
Okay, let me just, can we get this bigger, Andrew?
I think that's just the format it's in, isn't it? But I think we can see it fine. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, I think it's coming up bigger than you probably think it is, Doctor, at the minute. We can all see it fine.
Okay.
All right, away you go then.
Okay, fine. Well, Rita and Mace, thank you very much for inviting me here today. I hope this is going to be a friendship that will take root and grow in strength over the many months and years to come. My name is Professor Gatrad. I'm a consultant pediatrician, and I suppose my excuse for being here is that I've got a certificate and qualification in planetary health, and hence, I get invited to talk to various organizations. So I think this is an interesting slide in that if that's me there, if I talk to 3 people and each of those 3 people talk to independently another 3, and those independently talk to yet another 3, then in 3 weeks we can get the message right through across the world. So just in 3 weeks, 8 billion people. Now, my knowledge and what I'm going to present to you is supported by quite robust organizations such as Lancet Countdown, which is a hugely respected organization around the world, Royal College of Pediatrics, UNESCO, where I've presented a couple of times, and also the World Health Organization. So to start with, planetary health, we talk about climate change, but I think ideally we should be talking about planetary health because that actually incorporates climate change. And basically, it is the fact of what we have done through the use of our natural resources to our world, which is actually coming back to haunt us in a sense. And the age, a geological age that we're going through, is the Anthropocene age, which is defined by the fact that we're using excess of energy, which is creating a lot of global warming, impacting on our planet. So global warming basically is essential because if global warming was not there, then our planet would be minus 17 degrees. But what's happened over the last 150, 180 years is that the world has got blankets, so it's too warm for comfort, in the sense that we've got 1.2, 1.3 degrees rising temperature, which is impacting hugely on the planet in different ways. So since the Industrial Revolution, we've had the temperatures of the world going up all the time. Last year was the hottest year we've had ever. During that period, we've had carbon dioxide go exponentially up there. These are just a couple of pictures to show you how the world has heated up. Water is heating up. Sea levels have gone up a half a centimeter in a year, that is, okay? Now, we should really be following this blue line so that we don't reach an Armageddon situation by the end of the century of temperature rises of 2.5 to 5 degrees centigrade. Because already with what we have got, we've got millions of people that are affected. And if we get the temperature to just 2 degrees above the average that was 180 years ago, then we'll have 107 billion people, almost a quarter of the world affected. There's a lot of evidence to say that climate change is man-made, and there are a lot of skeptics around. This is the ice core data, whereby tubes have been put down right through into the core of the Earth over the last thousands of years, and they have found through carbon printing that the carbon in the air, the latest data that has got the most carbon than there was, for example, 1,000 years ago. So there is a lot of scientific evidence that this is happening. We all know that coal is probably the worst culprit, but certainly in the UK we're using much less coal, and hence there is much less sulfur dioxide, which is part of the polluting gas. The fact that we are going to go more for natural gas, importing it even, and the fact that in Cumbria we may be opening up more coal mines, I think is a death nail to what's going to happen to our planet. This is probably the most important diagram that I can show you. It is planetary boundaries. There are 9 of them. And on this side, a lot of the boundaries have actually been exceeded. And on this side, not so much. I'll just go through them very quickly because I will detail them a little bit later as well. Looking at the biodiversity area, biospheres, we've already witnessed 37% decrease in the bee population. Bees are very important in pollination and therefore in our crop production. There's a global wildlife decrease of 70% over the last 50 years. Deforestation, I don't have to tell you, a lot of it happening in the Amazon particularly. Amazon is the lung of the world, and you know, that's where the tipping point may well come. And I imagine if we've used up 50% of Amazon for farming or whatever, then I think the world is in big trouble. The fact that we're using a lot of pesticides are impacting on bees and ants, so that impacts indirectly on our food. The fact that we use lots of fertilizers, that eutrophies, in other words, it makes things grow that shouldn't, which are called cyanobacteria or algae bloom, and they create toxicity in the water. So fertilizers that have got phosphorus and nitrogen in them go through to rivers, toxifying them and creating toxic algae and bacteria which affect marine life. Just the fact that there's acidification through carbon dioxide diluted in normal warm seawater, there has been a huge impact on marine life. Coastal protection is affected from, for example, removal of trees. Hence, a lot of the acidified water and salinated water can actually get through floods into farmlands. As far as marine animals are concerned, you've got loss of river dolphins up to 65%. I'll talk to you about atmospheric aerosols shortly. Perhaps the only good news could be the fact that by 2060 we may well have our ozone layer, which is the upper layer of the stratosphere, repaired. And I'll talk to you a little bit about plastics as well. Children are special in whatever we talk about, because my talk today basically is emphasizing the impact of climate change and planetary health on children. They need protection from all sorts of things. For example, from transport, the fact that they can cross the road and get hurt, the fact that in developing countries they may be sitting on top of buses to travel. Environmental impacts I'll talk about, the fact that even in the UK we've not got enough green spaces for them to develop their skills for cognition and development. Education is impacted not only in this country because of heat and air pollution, but worse so in other countries. The fact that there are difficult and sometimes very selfish agricultural policies, it impacts on global food and security for children. Medical support, that's nil in most countries. And I was just talking to Somalia this morning, and we're providing some urgent help there shortly. And then obviously housing, which is obvious because if people haven't got houses to live in, they are open to the environmental impacts of climate change. Doesn't need me to tell you that 1/4 of the world is just children, and these are tomorrow's adults. 99% of the impact of the burden of climate change is actually on children that are less than 5 years old. And most of the impact is coming from us who produce 10%, who are 10% of the countries that produce 90% of the gases. And this is impacting on respiratory problems, particularly of children, more so from indoor pollution. United Nations gives rights to children for air, clean air, clean water, and nutritious food. But who is actually listening to them? And these children are shouting in the wilderness, and even people like Greta Thunberg, what she says is she's asking politicians to do things, and yet politicians are not doing them. Environmental is probably the most important subject I think we can hone in on today, because the fact that, you know, the air is not right, the water is not right, people don't hand wash, there isn't clean water for drinking. It impacts on not only respiratory diseases, but also on, for example, diarrhea. Flooding leads to cholera, cholera leads to diarrhea. Salination of water impacts on mother's health and blood pressure. That leads to premature babies. And malaria, where there's flooding and the temperatures are rising, there's more and more malaria. I'll show you a couple of slides of that in a minute. So the environmental impact, I'll just give you one example of an impact on a turtle of a rise just of 1.2 degrees, which is what we are experiencing at the moment. In Australia, it's been shown that turtle eggs are fertilizing. You're getting 100 females to 1 male being hatched. So just 1.2 degrees has got 1 to 100 male to female ratio on the hatching of turtle eggs. So you can imagine what could be happening to us humans. It's already been shown that whilst the baby is in utero, or even before the baby is born, there is huge impact on maternal anatomy and physiology, as you can see here. Sperm pumps are affected because of microplastics. Pregnancy outcomes, there's a lot of fetal wastage. Whilst the mother is pregnant, a lot of traumatic events that occur, not necessarily in this country, but many other countries, such as floods and fires, the impact on the mental health, which impacts indirectly on the child. The fact that she is pregnant, there's high input circulation, which impacts on the baby, particularly with the heat. And if she's got related conditions, such as diabetes, this effect is even worse. Now, what happens when the child is born? With the heat and the air pollution, which I'm going to allude to shortly, the impact is worse during the first 1,000 days, when most of these modalities are being developed. The sensory pathways, language development, and higher cognitive functions. Those are setting in stone during the first 3 years of life. And that is when most people are impacted, and that's when children are most vulnerable. So what makes them most vulnerable? Well, compared to you and me, they will have much longer life exposure to any toxin or to any changes in the world. It might surprise you to know that a child's lung develops mostly after birth. 80% of the lung air spaces, called alveoli, develop after birth up to the age of 5 years. Therefore, you see, you'll find some people who've got asthma that grow out of it because nature provides them with better support as the lungs grow. Children have got a much higher metabolic rate, so they burn up much more quickly the energy that's inside them. They breathe faster, they've got a faster heart rate. So all these things are happening at the critical periods of development. They run around much more outside. They've got an immature immune system. They've got an immature sweating system. Therefore, they can absorb heat very easily from the large surface area that they've got. And that impacts on them not being able to get rid of the heat from their body through immature sweating system. What about short children? Children that are shorter than adults. They pass a car that is guzzling away and producing nitrogen dioxide, etc. They are at a level at which they can breathe all these noxious gases compared to the adults who perhaps are not at that level. Children may not drink water because they've got immature behavior when they need to. They won't take their clothes off when it's too hot, for example. So all these things that are heat and environmental related impact on a child, not only in this country, but also countries around the world. I talked about air pollution and I talked about greenhouse gases. Let's just remind ourselves that carbon dioxide is 80–85% of the greenhouse gas total. Methane is 10%, but it's 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. Then you've got oxides of nitrogen from industry and also from cars. Methane comes largely from industry and agriculture, particularly cows. The last three are in smaller amounts, but very significant in their impact. For example, hydrofluorocarbons are in inhalers that we use for asthma. And these are thousands of times more powerful than carbon dioxide. The greenhouse gases are actually different from polluting gases. Polluting gases have got nitrogen dioxide, which is, I suppose, on the other side as well. It's got sulfur dioxide, which is not a greenhouse gas. It's got low-level ozone. Low-level ozone is actually produced by us. It's from cars and industry, where oxides of nitrogen, volatile organic compounds, they are photooxidized in the presence of light to ozone, which is O3. There's carbon monoxide and the volatile hydrocarbons that I mentioned. So those are the polluting gases. But inside them, they've also got what's known as particulate matter. Particulate matter can be solid or solid with liquids on it, solid with acids on it, and that, if it is less than 2.5 microns, it can get into our lungs and get into our circulatory system. So it can impact on the mother, it can impact on the other side of the placenta, which is the baby, leading to stillbirths and congenital abnormalities. It affects the baby with asthma as it grows up. It affects adults with cancers, diabetes, and as you get older even, dementia. So future textbooks that will be written will have air pollution as a cause of all these things that I've mentioned. We've already had a legal case of this young lady, Ella Casey Deborah, in London in 2013. 9-year-old, she died directly as a result of air pollution from the South Circular. More recently, we've had this baby called Ishak in Rochdale, died of spores within their home. So indoor pollution is also important. Around the world, a lot of people cook and also keep their houses warm whilst they burn wood and coal inside their homes. So that impacts not only on themselves, but seriously on their children. These are the indoor polluting agents. Now, it'll surprise you to know that indoor pollution actually is 4 to 5 times more than outdoor pollution. And you've got all these agents within the house coming from kerosene heaters, gas leaks, etc. So you've got nitrogen dioxide from cookers, you've got smoke from smokers, and also from smokers' clothes, which is called third-hand smoking. We also got in some houses radon, which is a radioactive gas which seeps through the rock and soils into our homes. So when you go to buy a new house, they often check the radon levels. Then we've got these biological and household products, such as cleaning products, bleach, that impacts on the indoor environment. Formaldehyde, which is part of the building materials, and it binds resins and binds together wood products. Cockroaches and also house dust mite, those are the biological agents that it's usually their danders or their furs or their skin that we breathe in. And remember, a lot of this is not visible to the naked eye. And if we look at 2.5 microns, a human hair is 20 times the diameter of a 2.5 micron. So at least you can see human hair, but you will never be able to see 2.5 microns, which can travel thousands of kilometers. So what's happening in China, for example, can impact on what's going on in the UK. So these 2.5 microns can actually travel huge distances. This is just a survey I did in Walsall. So air pollution, this is what they did in India. They got artificial lungs that they put outside the windows, and within 5 days, what happened in India and Delhi was this is the pollution that was noticed in the lungs. They completely changed their color. As far as heat is concerned, again, some research was done in India, where more children are getting headaches and losing concentration, affecting their schooling. But if you look at the impact of heat generally on children and adults, first of all, it impacts you by affecting your electrolyte balance and water loss, leading to vomiting perhaps, collapse, cramps. But if you reach very high temperatures of say 40 degrees or 104 degrees, and it lasts for half an hour, then your sweating stops. And then you get into a point of no return, where you would get organ failure and death.
We can't hear you, Rashid.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. Are we back to normal now?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's change the subject a little bit and go into food insecurity, how that impacts on children. It's interesting to know that production of food, which is basically food systems, the way they're produced in the soil, they're transported and then taken to supermarkets, etc. So that's a complete food system. And all of that takes up a lot of carbon footprint. So it's a major contributor to greenhouse gases, perhaps up to 10 to 15% globally. But then it's the same food and water system that is impacted by climate change. The very gases that have been produced in food production are actually coming to haunt, the production of food itself. So let's look at soil degradation. In the soil, you definitely need protozoa, bacteria, fungi, and nematodes. Things we hate, things we kill, things we don't want when children are playing around in the garden. But they are lifesavers for not only what's around them, but also the roots of plants. And plant production and food production depends on these four things. But these have been impacted more and more by monocropping, floods, soil erosion, and also excessive plowing. So if, for example, the food yield has gone down, then that will impact on the amount of food available for children around the world. Not only is the food yield going down around the world, but the quality of food is going down as well because of the quality of the soil and the nutrients in it. It's been shown in Canada that the nutrient value of carrots has actually gone down by 80%. So it might be large and fluffy, but its nutrient value is considerably low. Sorry. I mentioned to you bees in passing. Bees are crucial. If there are no bees, there are no seeds, and this impacts seriously on pollination and also 87% of the plants that we eat. Insect population and bee population has gone down over the years. And it's largely because of monocropping, because of large industrialization and increase of farmlands around where we are living. And most of the land is actually owned by 7% of people around the world. That's an interesting fact. The foods that most of us rely on are the one on the right, and these are the ones that are most impacted by what I've been talking about. So all these levels of yields going down, the wheat, the maize, the sorghum, the millet, all the productions over the years have been going down. The yield is going down. This is just iron. So this is South America and that's Africa. The very dark areas are iron deficient, seriously iron deficient because of the quality of food. Iron is important in brain function and also in development, not only of our organs, but generally of our linear development as well. So that is seriously impacted around the world. Again, continuing to talk about food, beef is the worst culprit. Production of beef produces a hell of a lot of energy, and it's got the biggest carbon footprint because it's taken to all over the world. For example, we eat beef from South America, even in the UK. So one of the message perhaps could be we could decrease eating beef, so that will decrease our personal carbon footprint. A lot of energy goes into food production, 10 to 15%, as I mentioned earlier. Most of the food that is wasted around the world is actually wasted in homes. So 70% of food is wasted in homes. So another take-home message is, if we decrease wastage of food in homes, we will help our own personal carbon footprint. Fish are dying from acidified water, loss of corals, and the fact that there's microplastic. So they are very important for 2 billion people who survive on it daily, because they've got iodine, vitamin D, iron, calcium for development not only of the brain but also the immune system. So that is being seriously impacted by what's happening in the oceans. The fact that children run around, they are more susceptible to infectious diseases, and there is now more and more a greater population of mosquitoes in southwest USA, where there's an increased incidence of not only malaria, but also dengue fever. So rising temperatures increases infectious diseases in areas where there was no infectious disease before, such as malaria, dengue fever, etc. To social impact, floods and fires disrupt systems. For example, just in the UK recently, when there were floods up in the north, there was no electricity for a long time. In America, food supplies were cut off, fresh water supplies were cut off in Florida for a long time. So all this impacts also on children. Droughts and land degradation as a result of floods and fires. It can lead to what's known as solastalgia, which is eco-distress. What's going to happen to me and my children whilst the world around me is changing, whilst the food around me is getting less, whilst the land around me is being toxicated and is being taken away by farmers who are now taking the land away and my forests away for their soya beans, for their palm oil, or whatever they want to plant. So this sort of eco-distress, even in the UK, has led to suicides. And that suicide obviously affects the lives of children. Just recently in Pakistan, and I was involved in Pakistani floods in a big way, and we are building 100 houses for people there who have lost their homes. A hell of a lot of migration occurred, a lot of urbanization, people went into cities, and that's got its own problems because children, not only are they starving, but during travel, they are being abused. And when they reach cities, they have to sell themselves to be able to survive. Now I'm going to change the tone completely and talk about plastics, which is the 9th boundary that I mentioned to you. And the production of plastic leads to 6% of greenhouse gases. And my interest in planetary health really started 5 years ago when I founded WASUP, World Against Single-Use Plastic, which subsequently became World Against Single-Use Plastic. So it was Warsaw Against Single-Use Plastic, became World Against Single-Use Plastic. According to the Secretary General of the United Nations, plastics are fossil fuels, just in another form. So that's how we need to look at them. So what has WASUP done? Well, WASUP has tried to educate people all around the world that plastics in the atmosphere, for example, from tires, screeching tires when you are driving, or from oceans that are throwing the big waves that throw out plastic into the atmosphere, or microplastic within marine animals that we eat, weaken our immune system, make us infertile, give us cancers, and importantly, passed on from the mother to the baby. That's what we educate people on. This is our
Rashid, sorry to butt in. Can we have about 5 minutes more so we've got a bit of time for questions? Is that okay?
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Super.
all right, thanks.
So we've got this Lord Lieutenant who launched WASUP. WASUP has got 4 principles, which is raising awareness, which is what I'm doing today, education in schools. And this is one of the books that I've written, which is through MACE, I hope, it will be converted into Hindi and be used in India. There's a WASUP song, there's a WASUP website, www.wasupme.com. Okay. These are various communities that we're involved with, raising awareness in Muslim, Hindu, Sikh communities, going into schools, talking to them about plastics, etc., and involving Tesco, WHG, and Co-op, etc. WASUP has gone global. It's in 52 countries now, and this is in Malawi and various local places such as Worcester and Coventry. This is in Sierra Leone and Ghana. Just in Africa, we've got 22 countries. This is one of our ambassadors, Jennifer Carles. She went to Pakistan and took the WASUP message out there. Now, if we don't do something by 2050, there'll be twice as much plastic produced and discarded, and there'll be more plastic in the oceans than there'll be fish. So what we are trying to do is I'm working on inhalers to try and decrease the production of inhalers in different ways. Okay, NHS uses up a lot of energy and hence produces a lot of gases, which in fact affect people, make them ill, and they then come back to the NHS to be treated. I've written lots of papers on how you can decrease greenhouse gases within the NHS. Just one message for you guys. One email, if you kept it in your inbox for 1 year, is equivalent to 40 light bulbs for 1 hour, is equivalent to 212 meters of an ordinary car. Hot showers for 4 minutes. A lot of people are doing different things around the world to try and get rid of the radiation. For example, here sulfates are being thrown into the sky to repel radiation. Lots of things are being done around the world. So this child has got no chance at all. All the bits that I mentioned to you are hitting this child. Yeah, the dengue fever, the migration, the wars, the fires, etc., etc. But as animals and humans come closer and closer together because of fires, because of the fact that there's poverty around and there's starvation, more humans will actually eat unusual animals, and that's where you get your pandemics such as COVID. So in summary, climate change, it's real, it's us, scientists agree, it's catastrophic. There is hope. Thank you so much. And that's the famous chappie who says, I think we should be doing our bit, but there is still time for us to change the ending. Hello, are we there?
Thank you very much.
I finished, thank you. I rushed a bit at the end, but I think we're okay.
Good. I'm not sure who's not on mute. Somebody's phone's ringing. Okay, I'll stop.